he has it. Turn 1 Swamp for Loren. And a Temple of Abandon for Jorge.
Now each of these players has access to the other's list this time around. So Nolen is going to know that Lopez does not actually have that many answers to Pack Rat compared to most red-green decks.
Yeah, 3 copies of Mizium Mortars. Domery if he gets out in front, but not a lot of answers. And there is a Mizium Mortars. So Jorge survives the first test.
A Mutavault added to the side for Nolen.
And it appears no third land for Jorge. He does have an Elvish Mystic. That's hit with Devour Flesh.
Now he chose to play the Elvish Mystic there instead of the Sylvan Caryatid. Is that right? Yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm curious. I mean, maybe he knew that he was going to get hit with a Devour Flesh there, but he also is allowing Loren to cast in a Bioblight as well, or an Ultimate Price, so. A curious sequence. I probably would have just cast the Caryatid. So you see Thoughtseize here from Loren. Look at a hand of 3 mana creatures, a Palikronos and a Xenagos the Reveler, and he takes Xenagos and attacks with his Mutavault.
Definitely an early advantage to Nolen, starting up a card, having a mana advantage and a card advantage, and having enough information to realize that he's not actually got that many threats that he has to deal with.
There is a third land, a Mutavault, and a Sylvan Caryatid, and Desecration Demon, the draw for Loren. And that was perfect. I mean, his hand was a land and 2 Gray Merchants. A pretty soft hand that's susceptible even to the Palikronos left over, but the Demon is very well suited for this board.
Yeah, I mean, that was the actual best card in his deck for this spot.
And there's Palikronos from Jorge. And an Elvish Mystic. So the race is on.
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely, but Palikronos, a fantastic threat. Unfortunately, not one that Loren is short on answers for. Although, at the moment, doesn't have any. He's going to have to just race with these Gray Merchants.
And one good thing about Green Red Monsters is it has no shortage of little chump blockers to throw it away for the Demon once it gets out ahead on the board. A lot of mana creatures and Mutavaults and such. Underworld Connections, the draw for Loren. Loren announces his Demon trigger, and now Jorge contemplating what he wants to do. Jorge says, that's fine. Takes 6 from the Demon, falls to 13.
Yeah, I mean, by staying on defense, he's only preventing 3 damage by holding off a Mutavault and an Elvish Mystic, because he can't effectively block the Palikronos, so you might as well just get in there for 6.
And here's a Gray Merchant. That's drained for 4. Jorge falls to 9. Loren up to 22.
Jorge with definitely a pretty respectable board, but unfortunately kind of short on ways to turn around the tempo here.
Jorge with a tap mound there. Okay. False alarm. Just Palikronos is attacking. Loren says it's fine. Nothing from Jorge. Drops Loren back down to 17. And now here's a Sylvan Caryatid.
So what do you think about playing the Gray Merchant there instead of the Underworld Connections? Making the drains for 4 and then 6 instead of 6 and then 8.
It's not clear to me if Loren can afford to give up a turn there. Because he's not really going to do anything with the cards he's drawing. It's essentially just a Devotion 4/2 add on to the board.
Well,
He gets to draw 1 card. If he misses a land drop, that's it. He just then has to start casting his Gray Merchants. I'm not sure it's worth giving up a turn there. Because it's not just about, the Palikronos hitting. He's potentially getting hit by an Elvish Mystic and a Mutavault the following turn.
It does speed up his clock by an entire turn, though. But like as it is now, the Like if he were to just play the Gray Merchant here, he would put Jorge to 3. By waiting and putting the connections down anyway, he's now threatening to put Jorge to 1. If he had done this in the other order and put the Underworld connections down first, he would have Jorge to -1.
There are some cards in Jorge's deck that can actually make it fairly risky for him to try to take a turn off there. There's the Zendikos God of Revels he has a copy of. He also has a single Flesh Blood. Those are some dangerous cards to give Jorge a free pass into. Jorge animates his Mutavault and attacks with that in Palicranos. Threatening to go monstrous. If Lauren animates his Mutavault, he can shoot it down with his 5 mana. If Lauren puts his Gray Merchant in front of the Mutavault, he can also shoot down the Gray Merchant after combat. Or before damage, rather. So Jorge got off to a rough start here, but still plugging along.
Absolutely. Nolen takes the beats.
And here's a Courser of Crufix before Jorge passes the turn, finds a Stomping Ground, plays a tapped, gains a life, goes to 10.
And the extra card's definitely great, but the life gain could actually prove pivotal. I mean, already Lopez is threatening to move out of range, even if Nolen were to draw another connections.
So Lauren with a hand of just 2 swamps and a Gray Merchant here. Jorge at 10, out of range of that Gray Merchant. And a lot of fodder for that Desecration Demon. 2 Sylvan Caryatids and a Mutavault still left to work with.
I think the first order of business, he's got to figure out everything necessary to decide whether or not to use Underworld connections.
And he decides he's going to False to 8 to draw a card. And there's another Gray Merchant. That simplifies things.
Absolutely. And that's absolutely huge.
So Lauren goes ahead and announces the Gray Merchant, or the Demon rather. Jorge sacrifices his Sylvan Caryatid, and here's a second copy of Gray Merchant. So that's a drain for 8. Lauren up to a very comfortable 16. Jorge falls to 2. Draws the mountain we knew about, shows Storm Breath. Plays the mountain, gains a life. And Lauren flashes another Gray Merchant, which Jorge can't interact with effectively. And that is game 1. Game 1 goes to Lauren Nolen. Desecration Demon takes it down.
Oh, absolutely. So in the sideboard, Lauren Nolen's primary sideboard plan is 4 Doomblade. Do you think there's any possibility he wants either Duress or Erebos God of the Dead?
I think Erebos is almost certainly not coming in. Duress may be worthwhile to fight some Planeswalkers. But before we get too far into the sideboarding, coming back to the booth here momentarily, Patrick Sullivan, Patrick Chapman, StarCityGames.com, Standard Open here in Detroit. We have a trivia giveaway. Now, the rules for this are, I'm going to ask you a trivia question. You are going to tweet your answer at SCG Live and hashtag SCG Premium. Of the correct responders, one will be drawn at random for 6 free months of Star City Games premium content. It is about accuracy and not speed, so don't worry about being the first one to submit an answer. Just answer correctly. Also, keep in mind that this contest is run solely and at the sole discretion of Star City Games. Twitch TV is in no way affiliated with any contest giveaways on its stream. And that question is, Jorge Lopez, Green-Red Monsters, he has a Singleton God in his deck. He has a Singleton Land in his deck. And he has a Singleton spell in his main deck. Name that spell. So what is the Singleton spell in Jorge's main deck? Tweet your answer at SCG Live, hashtag SCG Premium. Now let's go to the sideboard, shall we?
Absolutely. Lauren Nolen, as we said, 4 Doomblades. Possibly a Duress if he's just trying to round out his deck, you know. But my guess is that he's likely not gonna, just because he's, you know, with only 11 targets and some number of them going out. Think he's going to try to avoid it. Probably just the 4 Doomblades.
He does have a pretty easy path of just removing his 2 copies of Vile Blight, his 2 copies of Nightveil Spectre for 4 Doomblades and calling it a day.
Absolutely.
That sounds like a pretty good setup to me.
Yeah. The other issue is that he oh yeah, he absolutely, yeah, he's got 1 ultimate price in the main deck already, so he's already preset. Looks like that's an easy swap.
Yeah, flush with answers to green and red creatures, that's for sure.
Yep.
On Jorge's side, 3 copies of Mistcutter Hydra, 2 Plummets, 2 Shocks, 2 Unravel the Aethers, a Rorik Thar, a Bow of Nylea, Chandra, a Pyromaster, a Garrett Call of the Beast, 2 copies of Anger of the Gods. I think he's going to want the Plummets and the additional Planeswalkers. He definitely needs more answers to Desecration Demon. I mean, that's a huge issue for his deck, especially if Lauren's able to cast it early. It's a bit narrow, but I feel like he would want it here.
Absolutely. What kind of what's he looking to sideboard out? I mean, Flesh and Blood, of course. Does he take out some number of the Museum Orders to spike Pack Rat?
I think that if I were to remove something from this deck, it would probably be the Rampagers, because the matchup's not really about combat so much, and Lauren is so flush with Doomblades and ultimate prices that the setup where he has mana up and you're attacking, you can't even really Blood Rusher or Rampager in that spot because he has so much instant speed removal. So that to me is the card that stands out as being his worst tool in the matchup.
Makes sense.
Museum Mortars, even outside of Pack Rat, I mean, killing even a Grey Merchant. Grey Merchant's not the worst at clogging up the ground a little bit against Mutavaults and Corsair Crewfix and so forth. So they're not his best tools, but I think the Rampager strikes me as worse. The fact that he's playing against Lifebane Zombie is another small factor.
Oh yeah.
To lead to me wanting to remove that card.
Just increase the probability that you can get your hand to a spot where you're not vulnerable to the zombie.
Yep. But not a lot of sideboarding going on for both decks. Lauren definitely the one picking up the bigger edge. 4 copies of Doomblade, such a huge upgrade.
Yeah. Now he's already even got the Lifebane Zombies main deck too.
Mm-hmm.
He's just relatively well set up for the monster matchup.
Yeah, the removals with these black decks choose to play in the sideboard is pretty interesting to me. And there's a lot of different paths to go. Sometimes you see a bunch of Freakus Cures or Drown in Sorrows, or Lauren has none of that stuff. I guess Staff of the Death Magus is his way of fighting those kind of decks. And Doomblade's not shabby there as well.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Staff of the Death Magus plan. It's so close to just a auto win versus red-white burn,
Mm-hmm.
and it has very real applications versus the fast red aggro decks. What have you seen in Journey into Nyx for these red-green monsters decks?
I mean, not a lot stands out. Again, the creature base already is at such a high quality.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the red green monsters got its real push with Born of the Gods because of Corsair of Crufix, and to some degree, Xenagos, God of Revels.
It's possible that Temple of Epiphany makes the blue splash more reliable.
That's true.
You know, we already seen a little bit of rug monsters be a thing, and Temple of Epiphany is definitely some assistance in that regard.
Most of the big cards kind of take you in different directions rather than just bolstering the existing decks.
Mm-hmm. Although I think this is, the monsters list is something that can pretty easily splash Cyclonic Rift. That card's very attractive to me in this deck. The Planeswalkers, I'm less certain about.
Planeswalkers and gods like Kuranos and
that's another.
Kiora, Kuranos.
I mean, that's a different direction to take the deck. Both players keep 7 here. Jorge starts off with a Forest and an Elvish Mystic. Lauren with just a Swamp.
What do you think of Magma Spray? You want any of that in the sideboard?
Really only if Voice of Resurgence became prevalent, I feel like. And here's a turn 2 Domri.
Yeah, this isn't even the type of deck that's vulnerable to Voice of Resurgence anyway.
Yeah.
What about Magma Spray in your mono red deck in the sideboard?
Again, it would have to be Voice of Resurgence related. That card is good against mono red, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Lauren with a turn 2 Scryland. This is the big upset of playing green-red. I mean, look at that, a basic forest and a basic mountain to enable this draw. The Jund monsters list a lot less reliable in getting this kind of opening. Plus his Domri and misses again. Looks like he has a Scavenging Ooze, a Rampager. He's going to cast the Gore Clan Rampager.
This actually makes things pretty awkward for Lauren because now he's stuck trying to deal with this Domri, which has a lot of pressure being put on him, but his life total is going to be relatively low by the time he even gets around to it.
It looks like his hand actually isn't even flush with very much in the way of answers. He's a very creature-oriented hand right now.
Yeah, he has one hero's downfall, but he's going to have to pick his spot for that one. It looks like Domri is the one. So we're looking at another creature or two on Lopez's side. Getting in there for 5, putting some pressure on Lauren.
Still, this is a really solid start so far for Jorge. Gotta be pretty happy with where he's at. Was it hand left over as a Stormbreath Dragon and a Mizium Mortars?
Yep, and despite playing only 2 colors, your mana is still not a given in these red-green decks.
Yeah, 8 basic forests and 2 Mutavaults among Jorge's lands. On the other side of the bracket, Simon Stahl playing blue-white control wins game 1 over Junk. Not surprising.
Yeah, the card Sphinx's Revelation is like, I mean, that's like its own deal. And Jace Architect of Thought, not bad.
All right, here comes a no hesitation attack here from Jorge.
One of the nice things here is the ability to go Gore Clan Rampager to make the ooze a 6/6, and then eat it, going to a 7/7.
Now, I think that Jorge's hand is actually just a Mizium Mortars right now, but this is definitely a strong representation of Gore Clan Rampager.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's only a semi-buff, because even if he gets called, he still has the mortars to finish off the demon.
Yep. But if you're in Lauren's seat, I mean, even if the hand is Rampager, can you afford to take 6 plus an implied 5 more by the ooze, by Blood Rush and then the ooze eating it? That's a lot.
Yeah, I don't think you can, particularly when you have another demon in your hand, even if stuff goes south. You just want to soak up that damage. The only thing that's really annoying is that the demon being dead would cause the ooze to go up to a 4/4.
Yeah, this is a tough spot for Lauren. And I like the no hesitation attack from Jorge too.
Yeah. A very, very loud showing of strength.
Yeah, especially because he has this Elvish Mystic just hanging out here. And Lauren just takes the whole thing. That's a great attack by Jorge. Here's Courser Crewfix after combat. That reveals a Domri.
And Nolen is really looking for an untapped land here. The potential to be able to play 2 removal spells in 1 turn.
And it looks like his hand is, he can cast another Desecration Demon, you can cast Pack Rat with Doomblade up, but these are not great turns given how under duress he is right now.
Yeah, I mean, Demon is right out just because of the prospect of Courser of Crufix and Elvish Mystic tapping the Demon.
Especially if you respect the possibility of Gore Clan Rampager, which Lauren clearly did on the previous turn.
Well, and even that, I mean, the sacking the Mystic and the Courser of Crufix to the demons, you could in potential just tap the demons on Nolen's turn and then tap them again on Jorge's turn with whatever creature you draw and be showing 9 on board if you draw a Mystic.
And there is a Pack Rat.
This Pack Rat looking to be somewhat of a chump. Nolen going to try to play around Gore Clan Rampager with Doomblade.
All right. Draws the Domri, reveals Xenagos. Jorge with a lot to contemplate this turn. Storm Breath and Dragon still cannot cast.
Yeah, but with that Xenagos coming up next turn, I mean, Xenagos is potentially a huge well of red mana.
Mm-hmm. And Jorge again, very aggressive attack. It feels to me like he's just happy to get this demon off the table.
Hmm.
And you can't blame him. Because things get a lot simpler when the 6/6 is no longer in play.
And what's great is Lauren likely will have to hold his Doomblade playing around the Gorkline Rampager he's respecting, and then get hit with the mortars. And be stuck just holding the Doomblade.
Yep. This is all, you know, especially threatening because Jorge with the Storm Breath Dragon in hand. So these hits that Lauren's taking right now are really significant.
Yeah, absolutely. Lauren knows his back is up against the wall. Puts the demon in front of the Rampager.
I think right now this is just sort of a body language sell. Jorge, or Lauren trying to induce Jorge to use this Rampager that he suspects is there.
Well, he also didn't block the ooze.
Yeah.
So that if he has the Rampager, he's got exactly enough. Like, he wanted that, you know? He wanted Lopez to try to go for it and get blown out by the Doomblade.
So there is the Mizium Mortars post-combat killing the demon. Lauren on 5. Does Lauren switch to a plan B of trying to get Pack Rat going? He does have a Mutavault in play.
He's got to do some stabilizing first.
So there's an end of turn Doomblade on the Scavenging Ooze. Jorge's going to gain some life here on the way out. Lauren draws, it's a swamp. That does turn on the Grey Merchant in his hand. He has another copy of Pack Rat as well, so he can, again, try to switch roles a little bit here. And there's the second Pack Rat. And if you're Lauren, you start discarding these Desecration Demons and trying to just stabilize the ground and get a swing here with that Grey Merchant in hand.
I mean, once you have 2 Pack Rats and a Mutavault in play, I think it's very likely you want to switch plans, particularly when you're at a low enough life total that the Desecration Demon getting tapped can cause some very real problems. Besides, if he just Pack Rats, he's making his Grey Merchant potentially bigger.
There's a forest. Still no second red source of mana for Jorge.
And there's the red mana he was looking for. Next turn, stuff is going to get real.
All right, there's Xenagos, the Reveler. Makes a Satyr.
Xenagos is a pretty rock and roll type of dude.
And no other plays from Jorge. Lauren's going to go ahead and start making a rat here, discarding that Desecration Demon.
Did he not play a land off the top of his deck?
He did. He played the forest
right.
was the first
Yes.
card, yeah. And there is a Thoughtseize for Lauren.
Now, he does know that Jorge has a Domray in his hand. Doesn't know about the Stormbreath Dragon.
Now, if you're Lauren, do you test the waters here and send, say, 1 rat at the Xenagos?
That's interesting.
Jorge doesn't have a great block. He's sending 2 rats, presumably at Xenagos. And there's a double jump block.
Make it easy for Nolen.
So that was a very profitable attack there by Loren.
Definitely. Is it time for the Gray Merchant yet?
I think you can wait one more turn, and Loren decides that that is the case. So Thoughtseize takes the Storm Breath Dragon. Loren falls to 3. And passes the turn back. Draws its Temple of Abandon. Stomping Ground on the top. Plays the Temple.
Yeah, I feel like this is one of those spots where you just play the land off the top of your deck.
Yep.
Just have the extra land next turn, get a guaranteed life.
Because the Courser is effectively scrying that land to the bottom anyway.
Right.
It's actually scrying it into play.
The only thing you lose is the information. If you play the other way, you know?
And it's so valuable to have a scry land when you have Domri in hand. I mean,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
potentially another full card. There's the Domri. Pluses it to no effect. Makes a token with Xenagos and passes the turn. And now we are in a full-fledged pack rat game. There's a 4th rat now. With that Mutavault, one more rat means Mizium Mortar is no longer a factor. And there's a 2nd Gray Merchant off the top, and I think we're going to see Loren start to shift roles here in a dramatic way.
Absolutely. This has been very well played, giving himself as much time as possible to try to get the devotion count up so that these Gray Merchants can hit as hard as possible. Starts it off with some nice beatdown. 2 rats at each of the Planeswalkers.
Yeah, this starting is lethal on both Planeswalkers. And Jorge can't. He can choose to have one of his 2 Planeswalkers survive. He cannot defend both. And it looks like he's gonna keep Domri, sacrificing his entire board and letting Xenagos go. Here's a Gray Merchant that's a drain for 6.
And this should be certain doom for Jorge Lopez.
Particularly with that 2nd Gray Merchant in hand. Plus his Domri. There's a Caryatid and there's a hand.
Nolen wins 2-0, advancing to the finals of SCG Detroit.
Very well played. I mean, his hand was not great to start that game off, and
No.
Jorge got off to a good start. Of course, not having the 2nd red for the Stormbreath Dragon for so long was really detrimental, but Loren did a great job of navigating that game.